Most founders think they have a sales problem. They don't. In fact, they have a plumbing problem. You see, while you're spending all this money on ads, on setters, maybe even an agency, profit is leaking out the back door due to a lack of operational tidiness. Messy data, no visibility, and no accountability across the team means that you're unable to scale to the level that you're looking for. My name is Anthony. I'm the founder of AstroGrowth, and I've scaled multiple businesses through their operational infrastructure past 100,000 US dollars per month. And today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the top 3 automations that I install into their systems to plug those leaks instantly. Let's dive in to the engine. So, the first thing that I'm going to show you is how we capture every single rebill in a business so that no money ever slips through the cracks. What you're looking at is a test account here, and this is a carbon copy of what we give to our clients and install into their business to maintain their client database, right? Now, we have an example of an active client. For every active client, you will be able to click in and you'll be able to see some core information about them. Now, we're able to see the initial sale. Every transaction gets marked through a transaction form, right? The initial sale was here, and this is a rebill, right? Now, we can take a look and we can actually see future paced rebills. And the way that this works is off of the initial sale itself. So let's say that your closer gets a sale and it's a 3 installments, right? What would happen is that when the closer actually selects 3 as the payment method for the sales form, that will actually trigger the formula in our system to go ahead and, based on the rule that we give it, and typically installments are 30 days apart, that will actually go ahead and create the system where we build 2 new rebill instances automatically off that initial sale, right? If it's 3 installments, 1 gets made today, 2 get paced out into the future, right? Now, what happens is, because that gets built internally inside of Airtable, it's not dependent and it's not reactive like how most people track their finances through a payment processor. You see, if you're using something like Fanbasis or Whop or Stripe, that's amazing, right? They're all great platforms, but it's one channel of income for your business, or at least hopefully it is. You know, if you're accepting anything like a wire payment, crypto, any of these other forms of payment, how are you going to track rebills for those if they're not going through your payment processor? Well, that's exactly where this comes in, right? Doesn't matter what the payment method is, this system still works. And so we can see the initial sale date was March 3rd, and then we can see we've got installments built for April, May, and June, right? Now, what happens is when a rebill comes in, a rebill form should be submitted. It takes 2 seconds, and then when that gets done, the rebill gets marked as status collected, right? Now, if the date for the next rebill comes and goes without a rebill form being submitted, the system will automatically mark it as missed. And any rebills that are yet to come stay under the status of pending, right? Now, what happens if a rebill gets missed? Well, that triggers another automation in the system to send out a notification to your team directly in Slack, notifying them, hey, this rebill is now overdue. It actually lists who the closer for the original deal was, and they can get straight onto it to have a higher chance of retaining that client and collecting more cash. And what that message actually looks like is this. I've got an example of a real message that gets fired into an account. It's going to come through in Slack. It's going to say the closer, the client, how much is actually due, when it was due, and now the closer can go ahead and jump onto it ASAP, right? So that's the first one, capturing every single rebill that comes through the business. Now, the second one is a really important reminder for CRM hygiene, okay? I'm going to take a quick second to explain before we dive into this message here. But the way that we set up the CRM and all of our systems for our clients, we try our best to keep it as hands off as possible for the closers and the sales team in general, right? I worked in sales for many years, and I think we all know that closers and sales reps in general hate doing admin, hate staying on top of the CRM and keeping things organized, right? It's just a fact. So we can automate most stage changes of the pipeline, right? So if a lead is an opt-in, obviously they come into the CRM automatically. If they end up booking a call, we have an automation in place where it actually will go and find that lead in the CRM and it will change the lead status from opt-in to call booked. Same thing if the lead ends up closing on a sales call, right? If they end up closing, as soon as a contract gets signed and a sale gets submitted, that lead actually moves from status of call scheduled to status one, right? But the only thing that we cannot automate is the outcome of a sales call, especially if it didn't take place. For example, if the lead moves into status call scheduled and they no show or they cancel, right? Or let's say that they don't close on the first call, so the closer actually puts them under a status of follow up, right? Follow up call scheduled. All of these things we actually can't automate because we just don't know what the outcome was. Well, this actually keeps the closers accountable so that they can stay on top of the CRM hygiene. And the way that this works, right, is we send out a reminder message that actually tags the closer in Slack and gives them the lead URL so they can go straight to the lead in the CRM. And what this does is it's like a timer, right? As soon as a lead moves into status call scheduled, this thing will wait 7 days and we can change the duration of it, right? But for most of our accounts, we don't actually have booking availability for sales calls that go further out than about 4 days, right? So basically, if somebody gets moved into call scheduled, that call should have taken place within about 4 days' time, right? And so what happens is if a lead gets moved into status call scheduled and they stay in that status for 7 days, then this reminder gets fired out saying, hey, this lead, it's basically sitting stagnant, right? You've probably forgotten to change the status of it, go back, update it. And that way, we encourage and hold our reps accountable to actually go ahead and keep on top of their CRM hygiene, which gives us clearer data and clearer projections of what our pipeline is actually looking like, right? So that's the second automation that we install. Now, for the third and final automation, and this one's one of my favorites, again, doubling down on accountability. This one has to do with your end of day reports, right? I'm sure, especially if I'm speaking to any sales managers, you guys have had to go and manually chase people up for end of day reports. It becomes this big thing, and then if you need to look at a Google sheet or you're doing this in a really manual way, you can even sometimes let it slip through the cracks and you don't realize that there's an EOD missing. The reality when it comes to data is that data is only good and useful and helpful if we have it, right? And so if we don't have it, well, that's obviously a big problem. So that is exactly why here at AstroGrowth, we created this next automation, and it looks like this. This is a missing EOD bot. So what this bot actually does is every night we set it for about 11:30, so as late as it can get in the day, it will actually poll across the entire system, and it'll look to ensure that every single sales staff member has submitted their EOD. And it will be able to individually identify every single staff member who has not submitted an EOD. And then it goes ahead and it sends out a message into a public channel inside of Slack, basically calling everybody out. And we typically would have higher management or sometimes even the offer owner, the founder of the business in this channel as well. And it's kind of like in a way like a chat of shame, right? If you get called out or if you get put in here. But what this does more than anything, right? Everybody slips up. Everybody makes mistakes. We forget. We're human. Sure, no problems, right? But what I really appreciate about this is that when you manage a sales team, instead of you having to reach out, this proactively handles it. Because as soon as the closer or the setter wakes up and they log in, they typically see this and they think, oh, I don't want my manager to have to follow this up with me, or they haven't said anything yet. And so they see this message, and that's typically enough to prompt them to go ahead and submit yesterday's EOD. And then they'll reply to this message saying, hey, my bad, just submitted this now, won't happen again, right? And then that way, you didn't even have to follow anything up, okay? So these are the three most helpful automations among many that I install into these businesses that we work with, right? If you want to know a little bit more about our operations infrastructure and how we help these businesses scale right across all departments, I've actually created a free resource that you can go ahead and grab. It's going to be the first thing in the description of this video, and it's going to look like this. I'll give you a super quick run through. It's our revenue engine blueprint, right? And so what this actually shows you is across 8 different departments, every single bit of software that we implement and its actual purpose, right? On average, we find that the average business has only about 2 out of these 8 things installed across their departments. And what you can see is a breakdown, right? What most founders do and what we go ahead and do. So you can actually see the difference. And you can see this across all those 8 different departments in your business. So you can go have a look through this. It's super detailed. And at the end, if you're curious to find out more, or you potentially want to explore working with us so that we can just go ahead and give you our build outs and do all this for you, you can actually go ahead and click the button to book a call. You'll jump on with me directly. We'll have a quick chat, get to know a bit more about your business, and go from there. But with all that being said, these are the 3 best automations I've used with the clients that we work with at AstroGrowth. Hopefully they give you some ideas as to what's possible when you have the right systems and potentially even help you make some more money. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.